I wanted to get back to your topic of burnout,
Yeah.
and spending a lot of time working with users that were having operational issues versus getting your own work done.
Yeah.
Did you see that as an issue in OpenStack across the board, or did you see other forms of burnout? And I'm wondering, I
Mm.
mean, maybe this can talk a little bit about what you do. But given the fact that operators needed so much and need so much help, did any kind of a good consulting set of a cottage industry form up out of helping users get their operations going?
Oh my word. There was a lot of money made and a lot of investor capital burned, doing exactly what you're describing. I'm trying to think of the order to answer this question, because I have some personal stories on it, and I think there's a really interesting question here about the OpenStack consulting. So there was, especially in the early OpenStack days, Mirantis was the most notable, but not the only. Did a lot of OpenStack setups and builds, and made a lot of money doing OpenStack consulting and builds. But one of the challenges is that there wasn't a lot of repeatable process around how to do that. So like when we were doing Crowbar, we were really focused on trying to make these repeatable process builds, but it was hard to move fast enough to be like, because there were people who wanted to build some really big infrastructures really, really fast. And so a lot of bespoke OpenStack installs got built that nobody knew how to upgrade or patch. And this is two sides. One is OpenStack wasn't particularly worried about automating upgrade and patch. And the consultants weren't particularly worried about automating upgrade and patch. And so we built a lot of OpenStack installs that were not repeatable and not upgradable. And you couldn't learn. This is like one of the things that drives our mission at RackN forward is this idea that we actually want to have automation that's reused and repeatable. And if I fix a bug in the automation, I want to go back and help you. Or Crowbar didn't. But this is what we wanted Crowbar to do, but we couldn't get Crowbar to do it. Which was, if we fixed Crowbar, then you could patch Crowbar, and then you'd get the improvements on the automation on the other side. There's an interesting story from Crowbar's early history, because Dell had been doing Crowbar sort of as a single vendor project, and SUSE got very interested in it and wanted to collaborate with us. And Crowbar, actually, they maintained Crowbar long after Dell stopped, and it was their OpenStack installer for a long, long time. And when we were doing that collaboration with them, they would do development work against Crowbar during the day in Europe, and they would test it against SUSE, because that's who they were, get things working, commit their patches, and then leave for the night. And we would show up in the morning and bring in their patches, and it would break all of our CentOS, Red Hat, and Ubuntu installs, because they didn't test on any of that stuff.
Right. Right.
And that for us was that was a good example to me of this investment to make the partnership work. We had an engineer who would do nothing but check their builds, fix whatever they broke for the other operating systems, and keep that process going. And it caused a lot of burnout and stress for us, because we had developers who couldn't move forward because they had committed a change, and we didn't want to revert the change. So that investment, and we had a lot of conversations with our leadership of, is SUSE worth it if they are slowing down our commitments and the things that we had to get done in building that project. And this is the classic example. There was benefit to them being in the project and collaborating with us, but our internal teams and our customer sales and what we were doing and what our promises were being slowed down because we couldn't move as quickly, because we were cleaning up stuff that they had to do. So, that type of thing is very, very stressful. We had people who, just were like, I don't want to work on the project anymore because we keep getting behind from that. Um, there was another interesting case that where I felt personally burned. I'd personally committed certain features to Rackspace as part of that cycle, so that they could meet some deliverables. And our business people we adapted Crowbar to work in Hadoop also, which nobody in OpenStack cared about, but was important to Dell. And we got to a point where, from our products perspective, where we had to finish the Hadoop features, and the Rackspace people who were waiting on me to do something, I had to go back and tell them we're not going to get it done. And those are, realistic pros and cons for doing this type of thing. I think I actually told them that they could do it themselves if they wanted to, but if they had, I'd still have to go and put engineers on testing, validating, making sure it didn't break our stuff. So it's really hard for that. But I do see, just open source in general. You watch projects that get a whole bunch of traction, or especially single person projects that get a whole bunch of traction. And then, the person who's doing that ends up having to chase fixing, supporting everybody else's needs to get that type of adoption. And if it doesn't serve, if they don't have a benefit to doing that, they either run out of money doing it or they get exhausted. Yeah, and or get pulled off, right? It's, that's what, the cases I'm giving here is where I had leadership pulling resources off projects because they were spending all their time servicing somebody else's priorities. We tried to address that in the OpenStack. We had a product management working group where we were trying to coordinate activities across everybody else and bring in some more coordination on that. We had a lot of trouble getting that running. And I think some of that is how OpenStack leadership was structured, being very developer-led and developer-focused. There's, some of the commercial, getting commercial interests to have more say. There's a lot of cultural challenges in resource balancing for that. And I think that people assume that open source resource management is free. They make two mistakes. One is they assume developer resources are free when they're actually much more expensive. People don't think about it this way, but they're very expensive in open source projects. And I think they believe that they can be directed more easily. And those are myths. It's, in some ways, it's magical when it happens because people aren't doing it very intentionally. But it makes it incredibly hard to steer the ship.